Set my heart afire.
What is up, guys? It is Capital Coasters here, and welcome back to another video. And today I'll be bringing you guys another coaster review. And today I'll be reviewing Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion, the Intimate Giga Coaster of the park. And today I'll be talking all about this coaster. I'll be going through the layout and experience, then talking about the pros and cons of this ride, and give it a final score out of 100 at the end of the video. Alright, so for the layout, you're going to come out of the station, go straight into the lift hill. Of course, you have that awesome gentleman start your engines before you go up the lift hill, which is really cool. And of course, it's a cable lift, so it gets you up there really fast. It's really steep, actually, which is good because it's a huge lift. So it would take a while to get up if this is chain lift, but it's nice and fast. You cross over the top, get a nice view. Then you go into your giant 300-foot, 85-degree first drop. Then go into your insanely intense, ground-inducing first bank turn. Bank up here, go into a nice sustained ejector airtime hill, and you'll do a left bank here, diving down to a little speed bump, which gives some great laterals, into a really intense left bank turn into the 3 insane back-to-back low to the ground transitions, which give crazy laterals, to an insanely intense right-hand bank turn here, to a nice trimmed airtime hill, which the airtime depends on if the trim's running off or on the strength of it, to another little airtime hill, and then another little right bank here, to an insane transition, go to the left, dive down, raise back up, and transition into the brake run. So that's about it for the layout. Alright, so talking about the pros with this ride is just incredibly intense. It is probably the most intense coaster in the world. It's really known for that. It's just so forceful. The bank turns and transitions and laterals give just like ridiculous amounts of force, crazy positive G's. You know, that first bank turn, you know, you do gray out or black out. Like, actually, when I went a week ago, on Saturday, May 4th, I actually blacked out 8 times on that first turn. It is so intense. Now, I usually don't black out on it. Most of the time I gray out, but every time I've ridden this coaster, I've either blacked out or gray out on that first turn. Now, I will say that's the only part of the ride that I've ever blacked or grayed out on. The turn before the trimmed airtime hill I've come close to, not quite, but some of those really drawn out low to the ground turns, like the one that flies right past the station, the one before the trimmed airtime hill, the first one, those are just crazy intense and fast. They're like the ones in like Sky Rush, but on steroids. So forceful, so fast, so low to the ground. The back-to-back transitions give nuts laterals. There's some really solid airtime, like the first hill's good, and the trimmed hill and the one right after it are good. And actually, I'm pretty sure the trims were running a bit lighter, or maybe even off when it went a week ago. So the airtime was actually like ejector on those 2 hills, which it usually is just floater. And even got some airtime on the drop this past time, which I don't remember. Back in 2018, which was really good. The drop was a lot better this time. Definitely felt it a lot more. Definitely got a lot more airtime. It felt bigger. The drop is pretty solid. It's not the best. It's still over pretty quick, but it's still really fun. Pretty airtime filled. Really huge steep drop. Go straight into that first insane bank turn. And you get airtime on some of the transitions, like that little speed bump after the first big airtime hill. And going into the brake run, you get some insane airtime and laterals. Actually, the transition into the brake run is probably one of my favorite transitions into any brake run, like a final brake run or a mid-course brake run. You get crazy amounts of laterals and airtime, and you slam into that brake run. You're still going, I'd say, probably 50, 60 miles an hour into that brake run, which most coasters don't have that much speed. I don't know if you're going like 70, but I'd probably say you're going at least 60 into that brake run, at least 50. So you have to keep your speed throughout the ride, especially when it's running trimless. When the trims are running, when the trims are running light, you'll keep your speed really well throughout the entire layout. When the trims are running like harder, you will slow down a little bit, but you're still going pretty fast throughout that second half of the ride and that ending portion. And those turns are still really intense and just give crazy laterals. This ride is also really, really smooth. It did have a bit of a rattle when I went this past Saturday, or I guess last Saturday, a week ago, on the silver train, but the red train was actually running a lot smoother. However, it's kind of weird. The red train um, made this kind of rattling sound that the silver train didn't make, even though it was running a lot better and it was smoother. I'm not sure what that's about. I've always noticed that on the red train, but not on the silver train. It's kind of weird. But the silver train did have a bit of a rattle, which was a bit unfortunate. It was barely noticeable, but it's like a tiny vibration, shakiness. But on the red train, it's butter smooth. But it's almost butter smooth even on the silver train. Um, and it really just hauls through the layout. It was definitely hauling when I went a week ago. Everybody agreed with me. Really, Twisted Timbers and I Through Fire were both hauling a lot, and I got on both of them. Um, but talking about the cons of this ride, or I guess another pro is this ride also has some really good theming. That Dale and her theming the whole plaza with like the checkered flags and whatnot, and the like number three car, and there's like a checkerboard pattern on the ground, sort of, which is really cool. And they play like NASCAR style music, and you can see the ride from the plaza. And I really like the gentlemen start your engines before you dispatch. The trains look cool, like the kind of NASCAR themed trains. And I really do like the cable lift on this ride. Definitely gets up there really quick as opposed to chain lift, which would take pretty long on a Giga coaster. Um, I mean, I guess Fury and Leviathan do have faster chain lifts, but still would take a decently long time to get up there with a chain lift. But most like major intimate coasters have cable lifts, which is nice, and you do have one on I-305, which is really cool. But with the cons of this ride, I will say this ride is pretty short. Most people say it's a long ride. No, it's pretty short. I mean, you have that drop, the first turn, you have that first airtime hill, that little speed bump, that big turn going by the station, those back-to-back transitions, another like right-hand turn before the trimmed airtime hill, those two airtime hills, like a couple more turns into the brake run. So it's not a lot to it in terms of just amount of elements, and it is a pretty short ride. It's about 45 to 50 seconds. You know, it does pack a lot in, but it is not a long ride, but it's still good because it packs a lot in. And this ride does definitely lack variety. You know, you have your really intense turns, your crazy transitions, you know, some good airtime moments, but it doesn't have like a lot of different types of like laterals and turns and stuff. They feel pretty similar. Like Skyrush has like the Stangle Dive, does the twisted airtime hill. Um, you know, more types of like banks and whatnot and transitions. Um, but this ride definitely kind of lacks variety of elements. But it's still just an amazing ride. However, it actually did drop quite a bit in my rankings. Um, it actually dropped down when I went this past Saturday, or last Saturday. It dropped from my number one spot down to my number four spot. So it dropped below Steel Vengeance, El Toro, and Skyrush because I was kind of let down. I think the laterals on those back-to-back transitions weren't quite as strong. Um, and I think marathoning it really kind of just changed my opinion on it. It kind of just got repetitive after a while. You know, you had that black on the first turn, the insane intensity, you know, some airtime, you know, decent laterals, but nothing like totally different for each ride. While I felt with Skyrush and Steel Vengeance, Altor only ridden once, so I can't really say much about that. But Skyrush and Steel Vengeance, I felt that every ride was different. When I threw five, they all kind of felt pretty similar when I went this past time, which I didn't notice last year. But it wasn't as good this past time as last year, so that's why it dropped. But still really good. I mean, it's still my number four. I still think it's the top 10, probably like top 6 or 7 coaster on Earth. It's still my number three steel coaster, and it's still pretty interchangeable with Skyrush. I just think I like Skyrush a bit more, but it's still just an incredible, intense, crazy ride. You know, it's still one of the best coasters in the world. I don't think it's number one. In fact, I never really did. I don't even. But I did used to put this, you know, like top two, top three in the world. I had rides like Steel Vengeance, but I probably wouldn't do that anymore. But it's still like better than a solid 99.5% of coasters probably, because it is amazing, so intense, so good. It's still by far the best coaster at Kings Dominion. Twisted Timbers is really good. In fact, it was hauling when I went this past Saturday. Um, it was, amazing. But I still think I-305 is better. But overall, I-305 is just an incredible coaster. So for final score, I think I'm going to give it a solid 96. It's a really good coaster. That's, a coaster that's like top 10 in the world would get that ranking. There aren't many coasters that can get above like, a 95 or not, or that can, get that high of a rating. But, it's just an incredible ride. The best coaster at Kings Dominion by far. Still my number 4 coaster. Um, but maybe a little overrated. I don't think it is the best coaster in the world. But it's still really good. And it is one of my most ridden coasters, up there with Fury and Twisted Timbers. I think Twisted Timbers is my most ridden, and my second would probably be this or Fury. I'm not sure. I haven't really counted from most of my coasters how many rides I've gotten on, them, except for Fury, which I think I have 47. But it's definitely like probably top 3 for me for most ridden coasters. But it's just an incredible coaster. Still so intense, so crazy. Blacking out on a ride, or even graying out on a ride, it's just insane. It is crazy. Um, it is a giant, crazy, intense, lateral filled, airtime filled coaster with a lot of great aspects to it. But yeah, Inter 305 is just incredible. It's insane. It still blows me away every time I ride. It's definitely one of the best steel coasters out there. It's definitely the best Giga coaster. So that's going to be about it for my review of Intimidator 305 at Kings Dominion. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.